Kia ora and kiaorana, my name is Sonny Teio and welcome to episode 2 of season 1 for an Unlimited Living podcast, which is a waka for all people to achieve infinitely more and to love life. As promised last week, today we will kick off our 12-week transformation challenge with one word to focus on each week. We're going to look at what the word of the week means and then how to apply that to our daily lives. So, the word of the week is changes. What is changes? We can easily live day by day wanting a different life, a better life, feeling like we're stuck in a rut, going through the routine of our daily grind, asking ourselves, will life ever change? But what if we could really change? The word metamorphosis means to completely transform. Just like how a tadpole becomes a frog and the caterpillar becomes a butterfly. From one form of life into another life form, but with different dependencies, capabilities, and experiences. Let's look at the transformation of a caterpillar to a butterfly. The caterpillar crawls everywhere and feeds off plants until it's time to go into a cocoon to start that metamorphosis process. Once it becomes a beautiful butterfly, it now has the capability to fly from plant to plant. What a radical change in life experience for this creation, going from crawling to flying. The question needs to be asked, where did the caterpillar is born to know that one day it will fly? I believe that if we can understand the power of this life-changing experience for the caterpillar, we can begin to realize just how wonderful life can be if we were to spend a period in a cocoon of our own, going through a mental metamorphosis transformation. I believe that if we can understand the power of this life-changing experience for the caterpillar, we can begin to realize just how powerful and how wonderful life can be if we were to spend a period in a cocoon of our own, going through a mental metamorphosis transformation, that when we emerge from our cocoon, we begin to live a different lifestyle with new routines, new habits, and new experiences. I've asked myself this question earlier this year: if I could change one thing in my life in 2020, what would it be? If I could change one thing in my life in 2020, what would it be? Then I started thinking about the F8 life model that I created a few years ago that has helped me live the life I currently experience. The F8 life model covers faith, family, finance, food, fitness, fun, friends, and free. We will cover this in the next series to start later on in the year. So I asked the same questions for each of the 8 areas of my life. If I could change one thing in my life in 2020, what would it be? Instantly my mind started to rattle off the different ideas for each area that I wanted to improve on for 2020. But I needed just to choose one. Albert Einstein once said, insanity is doing the same thing twice, expecting a different result. Insanity is doing the same thing twice, expecting a different result. So, how do we change? Once you know what you want to change, how do we do it? I've noticed that before every blessing, I've experienced some form of pain in life. I was driving my wife's car when my Subaru broke down, and I put up with it for a couple of years until recently I got sick of it. I had to take my 2 boys to a camp in Raglan, New Zealand, which is 4 hours from where we live. So I loaded up the car, put all my kids in, even my daughter had to tag along with me, and we drove all the way down there, 4 hours, sitting in the small car. I'm 6'4", and there's 4 of us in the car with all their camping gear, and we drove all the way to Raglan in a small car. And by the time I got there, I was quite flustered or upset. I was frustrated. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this again. And the other issue was that I knew that I had to drive the car back. So once I dropped off my boys at the camp, me and my daughter buckled up and we made the journey back home for another 4 hours in that small car. And as soon as I got home, the first thing I said, I'm buying me a new car. I'm going to buy me a car. I didn't care what my wife did. I was just so frustrated of that experience that it was so painful to be sitting in that car for so long. I thought, man, I'm going to buy me a car. And like straight away, I started looking online. Like, I want to get the car that I want. I knew what I wanted. And I started looking online and I found the car that I thought was I thought, oh, that's a reasonable price. It's got reasonable Ks. It's exactly the car I want, 7-seater. And look at the photos, and I'm like, hey, this is interesting. That photo looks quite familiar. The background, the park, it was parked in a car park. There was a park behind it, beach. I'm like, that looks like the park across the road from us. So I looked out the window, and sure enough, the car was sitting there in the car park. I thought, oh, this guy's only a few days down. So I was looking into it. Said to my wife, man, I found this car. I really want to look at it. And I've organised a test drive with the owners, which is like 4 or 5 doors down the road. And so we turned up, and we took the car for a drive. And I just said to my wife, imagine if we picked up the boys in this car. Imagine how they would feel. And she just looked at me. We're buying this car. We're getting this car. And so within a couple of days, I was driving the car that I always wanted, and 7-seater, it was V6 Holden Captiva, less than 100 Ks, and yeah, it was amazing. It just all happened. There was a change that just went through within a few days. So I just want to give you 5 simple steps. I've probably given them away already, most of them in that little story there, but 5 simple steps that can cause change in your life. The first step is to identify the one change. What is it, the one thing that you want to see change in your life? For me, it was the car. I needed to get a new car. Okay? So that's the first thing. Identify what is that one change. It could be a fun trip to some exotic destination overseas. So the second step is that we need to create steps for the change. We need to plan the strategy to get there. How much is going to cost you to go overseas? What about transport? What about accommodation, food, drinks, activities? All those things. You've got to create a strategy. You've got to have an understanding of what this change is going to cost you. Just like when I knew what car I wanted. I had a price range. I had like the age of it. It needed to be at least 5 years old, and kilometers needed to be under 100 Ks, so on. I had a list of things that I wanted. And then the next step, the third step, is that you've got to commit yourself to action. You've got to take one small act of faith towards that goal. Set up a travel savings account with automatic payments per week. Do something that's really small but starts to get the momentum going and seeing that change. For me, it was to actually contact the person, the owner of the car, and say, hey, look, I'm interested in your car. I just live down the road and I really want to take it for a test drive. And that got me started, got the momentum going. And so the next step 4, is to review the change and the steps or the strategy every day. Visualize your goal with an image of that exotic destination and save it to your phone. Review that image every day and see yourself reading a book on the beach, sipping pina coladas, or listening to your favorite music. whatever that you love to do to relax. See yourself doing that. For this car, I downloaded all the photos that they had up on the site, and I just looked at it every day. I'm like, man, imagine what it would be like to drive this car. Imagine what it would be like to go on long trips. Imagine what it would be like to go pick up my boys in this car, and just the reaction and the response that they would have. It's like, it was just like, I could see it happening. It was a done deal, and it was just, everything just started moving. And so the fifth thing is quite important, is that you've got to confess to someone you trust. You've got to tell someone that you know that is going to be excited for you and supportive, that they're going to encourage you, and they just tell someone. Get it out there, speak it out, and then prophesy your dream. Tell people that you're going to go and do this, you're going to go on this holiday, you've got it all planned out, you're starting to save money. Tell people, be accountable to someone. Avoid the negative ones in your circle. If you know someone that's going to put you down, don't tell them. Just tell them after it's happened. Say, I've just been to Bali, and they can't say anything because you've already done it. So those are the 5 simple steps. Identify the one change, create the plan, the strategy, commit yourself to action, review the change every single day, visualize your goal, and confess to someone that you trust. Okay? And so when we picked up our boys, they were crying. They were just gobsmacked. They were just, because it was unreal that now they get to cruise around in this car, because they're also becoming big boys. And they no longer had to be stuck in a little Nissan Note. So it was an amazing experience, and just follow those 5 simple steps. So just remember our quote of the week. Insanity is doing the same thing twice, expecting a different result. Insanity is doing the same thing twice, expecting a different result. And just a big shout out to the Kansas City Chiefs winning the Super Bowl 54 earlier this week. They are known as the comeback kings this season, where they've trailed 20 plus points behind and finished the game winning against their opponents. Why? The game plan they started with wasn't working, so they had to change it, and they had to make that change very quickly, otherwise they would have lost. And we saw that in the Super Bowl, where they were behind, what they were doing wasn't working, so in the third quarter some changes were made. They had a lucky event, but the change started to happen, and then as they focused on this new different strategy, you see they won the game. It's quite amazing. Last year they were very close. This year they made some changes. This year they got it. So insanity is doing the same thing twice, but expecting a different result. If they had used the same strategy in the first and second quarter, they wouldn't have got a different result. They would have lost the game. So make sure you follow me here on anchor.fm Unlimited Living with Sonny Teio, and I am also on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. You know what to do. Just search for @Sonny Teio. Please don't hesitate to give us a 5-star rating on this podcast, and share to all your family and friends today. Next week, we will continue our 12-week challenge. The second key word will be choices. So make sure you tune in next week. And thanks once again for listening to Unlimited Living with Sonny Teio, which is a waka for all people to achieve infinitely more and to live love life. Ka kite anō, and God bless you all.